welcome to another episode of Sleep Paralysis News. I'm Sheila Price Brooks, and I'm a PhD researcher and a sleep paralysis experiencer quite chronically for many, many years. I'm here with two guys here. I don't know if it's to my left and right, dependent upon your views, but I'm here with my co-host, Cyrus. And Cyrus is also a sleep paralysis experiencer and also, as I said, my co-host. He has a degree in psychology as well, and he's joining me today as we interview Chris. And Chris is also a long-standing experiencer of sleep paralysis, and I want to get straight into his experience and his story of this phenomena. So, Chris, talk us through what your experience is like.
Well, it all began when I was a kid. And, I don't even remember exactly when, but I had to have been probably, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years old. And it was something that would happen maybe twice a year. I mean, it was rare. And early on, I had no clue what it was. I had no idea what it was. It scared the crap out of me. And, I thought obviously, I thought it was something like supernatural, something totally beyond my understanding, even as a kid or just as anybody would. But I learned how to kind of get past it. And I just kind of learned on my own. Um, the harder I tried to say something, to utter a noise, a sound, because it was hard. It's not easy because you're numb. I mean, you're frozen. But the harder I would try, and I could just get out of, just anything. And then slowly everything kind of starts to come back, and I would wake up, just freaking out, man. Like, what was that? Afraid to go back to sleep, and eventually I would. And again, it's twice a year, it was so rare. But over time, over the years, I kind of got used to it. So it always scared me, always, every single time. But I kind of knew what I thought it was, or that I knew that I didn't know what it was. I just knew of its presence, when it came around. And I just would do the same thing I always did, and did that throughout my life. And till I got to about 40. And one night it started coming on. I was like, I know this. Man, this again, And I said, you know what? For once, I'm curious. What would happen if I just went with the flow? Just did nothing. Did not try to wake up,
Yeah.
And I will admit, at the time, I was going through some rough times. there was a darkness looming around me already. So
Mhm.
I really didn't care, because you get that feeling. It's like, man, what if I'm going to die? It feels like you're dying, if anybody knows what that feels like, but that's what it feels like, and I didn't care. So I just relaxed, just focused on my breathing. And man, I went on a ride. I went on a trip. And I kept going on trips for a couple of years after that.
So would
And
you compare that to lucid dreaming, if you know what that definition is, or
oh
like
yeah,
astral projection maybe?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so when it
just
happened to
based.
me, I didn't have enough episodes to come to that conclusion, but yes, that feeling of trying to get out, I takes some courage to stay relaxed in that moment and say, okay, I'm gonna go with it, because
Yeah,
intuition is like panic, like you can't even
right.
help it. You got to go through that episode many times to have that mature mind to say, okay, it's happening again, relax. So that's pretty hard for you to do. I'm not at that level where I'm like, let me write this out. I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah, I'm with you, because I'm not at that level either. Like I said, I was in a dark place and I didn't care. But right now, I ain't in a dark place. And hey, dude, whenever I get that feeling, I'm just like you, dude. I'm right back where I started. And it's just because I get scared, man, because I'm a scaredy cat. And
Hey, we all are. No matter how tough we act, I'm telling you, I've had some scary things happen in my life, and sleep paralysis. I don't care how tough you are as a man.
Word up.
and the intuition of fear comes out of you.
Sure enough.
So, that was very humbling for me. Like, oh, okay, I am not, the biggest, baddest person in the world, because this stuff, will scare anybody. But I think that you touched on something that we've been talking about a little bit, and you said that you were in a dark place. And I was kind of mentioning, I'm recognizing out of all the stories that I hear that it kind of has to do with like the dark side of yourself, or the sinful nature of yourself, that is coming to life during sleep paralysis. So if you have a lot of sin, or your mind is very pessimistic and dark, and you're dealing with depression, the demon you might see might be this big. It might just be a big, and that's a reflection of what is going on in your heart, in your mind, on a daily basis. And maybe someone has a little slight episode of sleep paralysis. Maybe they've got just that little bit of sin, or that little bit of darkness and depression. And there's something about, us being in a dark place, because that's when I have my sleep paralysis, and the worst episodes that I was having, I was at my darkest time of my life. And yeah, it was before I really became a Christian. So I was full of sin, and I was unrepented and things of that nature. So I am noticing that this sleep paralysis demon is almost as just us. It's our sin. There he is, and you got to fight it. You got to figure out what that sin is to clear it up in your own subconscious mind and heart.
I hear what you're saying. I would like to go back a bit though, Chris, if that's all right, and dig a bit deeper in terms of your experience. What I mean, let's say you go to sleep normally and then you wake up. And then what is it that would happen to you? Yes, you'd be paralyzed, but did you see anything? Did you hear anything? Did anything touch you? What was that experience there?
Yes, to all of the above. Not at the same time. It was over experiences and stuff, but the weirdest thing, like when I was talking about it when I was a kid, and I would get this whole thing, this feeling, something I always noticed ever since I was a kid, when I close my eyes to go to sleep, it's not just black. It's black, it's dark, but I see like little dots, man, like billions of little dots, and they're just shimmering just all around. And the more I focus on maybe a particular area, there'll be like one dot that I'll focus on, it'll get bright. And if I just keep focusing on it, it gets brighter and brighter. And then all that black starts to kind of like go in like waves. It's almost like when you drop black ink into water, that that shape, that texture, or even like black smoke, kind of like that. And the more I relax and focus on that dot, the faster and the stronger that wave gets. And that's when that sleep paralysis really kicks in, man. And I start getting numb, and you just get this feeling that you're about to go for a ride. And there's a threshold, I've learned. There's a threshold, man, because you get to a certain point, you can still pull back, and try to talk or move or whatever. But once you pass that threshold, forget about it. You are going for a ride, man. And I went for them rides, almost every night. I would go, man. I would go out, and I wasn't scared at first. I would always see some scary stuff in the beginning, but that would always go away, and you go to other stuff. But like in the beginning, I didn't care. I wasn't afraid. But over the years, I became more and more afraid. And that's kind of why I think my subconscious has cut it off, because I don't have too much of an issue with it now like I did then. But the fear wasn't from stuff I was really seeing. It's just me. Just like Cyrus was talking about, just that that natural. It's like, man, I don't understand none of this stuff, man, and the feelings. And yeah, you talk about like, I never heard anybody's like voice talking to me, but I don't know. I think one time. See, I have all this stuff written down. I kept a journal, and like I was telling you, I got that YouTube channel, where I narrated my whole journal. So I think I got like 9 or 10 snippets on there.
Let's do a little. How about a little plug there? What's the name of your YouTube channel?
It's a MRI guy voiceover. It's all one word, and yeah, I get visitors every blue moon, man. Not too many people go in for a visit, but it's all the experiences that I had, and trying to make sense of it all. But I felt touch. I've heard voices, but I've learned that talking is not really a thing. Like in that state, everything's like mental. And it took me a while to understand that. But yeah, man, it's
So
scary.
when you say everything's mental, are we talking telepathy? Like in your mind, you can hear things in your mind or communicate in your mind?
That's what I've always heard. I can't say that I've ever heard a voice in my head, but I remember, and it's on my narration, one time. And I was like, do I have a guide out there? Is there somebody? And this is all me thinking that, And I remember one time I could have swore I heard a name. And I remember thinking to myself at that moment, don't forget that. Remember that name. And I would immediately start writing everything as soon as I woke up, came to. And I wrote that down. So I must have heard it. Or felt it.
And you're saying that was your guide's name?
That's what they said.
Okay.
But see, that's what I mean, because I don't know. I've been in a couple other situations where I asked somebody if they were my guide, and I guess I heard it or it was in my head, but they were saying yes. Oh yeah, I'm your guide. Hey, that don't sound too convincing, does it? It didn't to me. It sounded nefarious. It sounded fake.
A little
deceptive. Yeah, totally. And that's what I mean, though, as far as like, I don't know what to believe. What I'm seeing, is this real? Is this like somebody? I don't know. It's so confusing.
I think that for a lot of people, they don't kind of get the link between the sleep paralysis experience and why are we talking about guides here? We're talking about spiritual guides.
Yeah. I'm going all way off topic too. I'm sorry about
that. No, you're not.
No, it's on topic.
It's on topic. And I think that part of what we want to do is to bring more clarity to the sleep paralysis experience, because it is all intertwined and linked with your spiritual guides, with other kinds of spiritual phenomena, with lucid dreaming, with astral projecting, with having dreams that come true, with hearing and being told messages, with going to other galaxies and other planets. And there's the extraterrestrial bit as well that comes into sleep paralysis also, right. and going on journeys and being taken places. And it's all part of the sleep paralysis experience, And as you said, it's once you can get past that fear part, that's and academically there is someone who Steiner, who talks about it being a gateway. There's a gateway that you've got to pass through, and those
tunnels, man.
And I'd like to hear about tunnels.
Yeah, I've been through a bunch of tunnels, man.
Because
I would be so scared. I would feel like my body was like in the fetal position because I'm so scared. And my stomach, like when you're on a roller coaster and your stomach's like just going all, that's how I was feeling. I was petrified. But I also felt like somebody was holding me because I could feel like an arm around my waist. And I remember one time it was really tight. It was so tight, it was kind of uncomfortable. I don't want to say painful, but maybe kind of, sort of. And I asked them, I was like, hey, this hurts, can you loosen up, And they did. and we continued on. But I
Wow.
couldn't see anybody. I just felt a presence. I knew it was there. I could feel the arm around me, you know. The tunnels were different colors. I mean, so fast. Just like you see, I see it all the time on like there's some like movie theater premiere where you like start out and you're going through this thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Cyrus?
that's normal.
And I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, man, that's just like the you know, traveling, man, through you know, astral projection or whatever it is, you know.
Wow.
But
And where did you go? Did the tunnels lead anywhere, Chris?
every time, yeah. I think the first time I remember going through something that was real dark. It looked like a laboratory, and I saw like a body floating. It was a dude, and he was floating face down in the air. He was naked, and then I'm just like observing, just like moving and observing. I don't see like no body or nothing. I just see like a camera, like a movie camera, like panning and viewing. And I see this chick, and she has like a doll face. She's bald. I know this is all totally weird, man, but I'm cruising. It's just dark. So I'm cruising. I go past all that, and then I just see a dark circle with a light around it, way off in the distance. But I'm moving toward it really, really slow, really slow. And I'm just like relaxed. And I'm like, what is this? Where am I going? What am I about to see? No, I'm just concentrating on my breathing. And then my alarm starts going off. I can hear it because Pink Floyd, it's like my alarm. And I can hear Pink Floyd playing while I'm like going to it. I'm like, oh, hey, that's my alarm. And I was back in my body. That noise, the first couple of like incidents like that I had, I always heard that noise.
Yeah.
Every time, going or coming back. But later, I stopped like hearing that. Another thing I noticed, like that sleep paralysis, when it's really kicking in, everything gets louder. So like your air conditioning unit, if you got a fan on, if you got like your TV on or something, it gets twice as loud.
Yeah.
And that's when I just know, just from my experiences, that's when I know it's like, okay, I'm going deep and I'm about to go, you know. But so whenever I would get that, I would, you know, I'd kind of snap back and because I always fought it, man. Like early on, I didn't care, so I would just go. But later, I would fight it, man. I was like, nah, I didn't want to do it, and I still don't.
What do you think it is, Chris? What do you think is happening?
I think it's something that's there for everybody. I think maybe I'm just, I don't know, like more apt to, because like I said, it's not even something I have to try at, man. I try not to. And I guess I'm older now, and my subconscious has kind of figured out a way to just go to sleep and just sleep. It doesn't bother me a whole lot anymore, but it's always there, man. I can close my eyes anytime and just start relaxing. I see all that crap, man, the little dots and the waves of black every time, always, anytime I close my eyes.
So back, go ahead.
This is really, really interesting because it's almost like what you're saying is that there's this kind of parallel kind of universe or dimension that's going on around us all the time that you're able to tap into by closing your eyes and going to sleep. That's almost what you're kind of saying and what you're experiencing to us, you know? That's what
Absolutely.
It sounds like.
Yeah,
so
totally.
You, and at the beginning you said that for you this is a spiritual thing, which is interesting again because you're saying that it's not a hallucination because that's the common thing, isn't it? We're all
not.
hallucinating.
It's real, man. It's just like my thought, me here right now talking. That's how I would be in that state, wide awake, wide awake, but not. I mean, it's, man, there's so many weird instances. If I start going, it's like you're gonna already hear me rambling. I just go every which way, man, because there's just so many different things, and it all is coming back. And
it's extremely hard to call it a hallucination, especially my experiences. There was no there was no jump from reality to another in any sort of way. So it's like people like, was it a hallucination? Like, man, I guess so, but it wasn't. It couldn't have been. You know, I didn't blink or anything. So it's crazy. And back to that sound that you said that you were being like when you heard your alarm clock. And I don't know if you know about a term called like the spirit molecule. And
DMT.
Correct. There we go. DMT. Yeah. And this kind of is released in our brain when we're born, when we die, and when we fall asleep. So if you kind of take those three together, it's almost like when our spirits are separating or entering our body, this DMT is being released. So when you're hearing that sound, is that the sound of you? Oh, you got to return back to your body, you know? And it's
I don't know, man.
Portal type stuff going on. It's just like, oh, my body's trying to wake up, but my spirit isn't in my temple yet.
Yeah.
And your spirit is really your thought. A thought is your spirit, and your thought can be separated from your body.
Totally, man.
It's crazy.
You know that you're talking about DMT. I'm an MRI tech, like for real. I do voiceover like for pretend, but I'm an MRI tech, and man, every time I scan somebody's brain, first thing I look at is that pineal gland.
Oh,
that's where the DMT, is secreted from, and it's right in the center of your brain. It is right smack dab in the center, man.
Yes,
and perfectly. I compare because some people's are really big, some people's are really small, some people's are calcified. Whenever I see a really big one, I'll ask the patient afterwards, like, hey, I said, do you have really vivid dreams? Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. Every time, man, when they got that big old pineal gland, man. Just something I've noticed, man.
Yes.
Over the years.
And so we can fact check this, but they're saying that fluoride is not good for your pineal gland and it calcifies it. And there's fluoride in our tap water.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like calcifying your pineal gland really limits your opportunity to have spiritual experiences or connect to the spirit world or a God. As you were saying, you just proved my point. If you have a big pineal gland, I bet you they have more spiritual experiences. I bet you they're in the spirit world some kind of way through their dreams or paranormal activity happening to them. So if you have your pineal gland calcified, then your ability to connect with higher truths or this spirit world or a God is limited. So then you can add the conspiracy that don't drink the water.
Yeah, man.
Don't drink the water.
Hey, there's fluoride in a lot of stuff. Probably more than we know, Yeah,
and they tell us it's good for our teeth. It's good for this, that, and the other.
You remember that? They used to give it to us when we were kids.
Oh, I don't know
they did it when I was a kid in school. They'd come by with that big old, it was like a bucket or like not a bucket, but it was like a big old jar or something. And they'd squirt a little bit into a little Dixie cup. And everybody had to come up and swish it around and, spit it out or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's in the name of health. But hey, I'm open to listening to that conspiracy because naturally water doesn't really have fluoride in it. So man is coming in to interfere how we are naturally supposed to be drinking water. So, hey, I as crazy the things that go on in this world. There's so many higher powers that understand higher intelligence and influences in this world that go beyond our understanding. So here we are just drinking water with fluoride in it because it's good for us. And really it's limiting our ability as humanity to connect with the spiritual side of ourselves.
Yeah, I want to see Bill Gates' pineal gland.
Shoot, I don't know. Because he might, I think those really smart guys are kind of agnostic. And so I don't know,
man. I think those dudes, they probably know more about this stuff than we do.
I'm sure. I'm sure they do.
You know what I mean?
But like they're so smart.
Well, like Elon Musk they've all tapped into this stuff already. They probably know all kinds of and they don't want us to know. So hey, put fluoride in the water.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for them personally, but
Nah, I'm just talking
yeah,
smack.
from what I've seen by the really smart people, they almost don't believe in God because they are more like, I have the answer. I can discover any answer. I don't have to rely on this higher power as a source to get understanding. So they are their own source of intelligence and wisdom here on earth. That's not everybody. I'm just saying how I've
That was
come.
me, dude. I've been. I was raised a Christian, big time, dude. My parents are, man, they are super strict, diehard, like Baptist religious, and I was raised on that, man. And as I got older and started getting into like heavy metal and stuff, I
I
went
was about to
south.
say,
I went south of heaven, and I was just, I was a bad kid, man. And I've been agnostic most of my life. Even when I was having these experiences and stuff, I wasn't religious at all. And then you know what? What's his name? Alan Kardec? Was that book?
The spirit book.
When you posted that,
Yeah,
I
Alan.
went and got that book and I read it. And
Oh, that's very good.
it brought me back. It brought me
wow.
back to believing in
What's the
God.
book called again?
The Spirit's Book.
The Spirit's
By
Book.
Alan Kardec.
Yeah. And I'm talking just recent, man. That was what, a couple of months ago, several months ago, something like that. That's how recent it affected me a lot. I showed it to my dad. And like I said, he's old school Baptist religion, man. He ain't trying to hear about nobody talking to no spirit, He's still reading it. He's still reading it. He loves
He's reading it.
Yeah, he totally got into it. Yeah.
Wow, that's so powerful, Chris.
Everything made sense.
I mean,
Everything made sense. I couldn't deny it.
Yeah.
I mean, it made perfect sense,
Yeah. That's that's encouragement for me because I send out the posts. So it's good to know that it's having that kind of impact.
It got me.
The post sent out. That's really,
brought me
really
back.
good.
Brought me back.
That's
Gonna turn my shirt inside out.
That's great. Okay, so is there anything else that we want to ask Cyrus whilst we've got Chris with us?
I think maybe one more question would be, and I had this for myself too. I tried to figure it out when you're saying that it was maybe happening twice a year at one point when you were younger. What correlation could you find that sparked those episodes? And I can't find it either. When I study it, it might be just lack of a sleep cycle. Usually sleep paralysis happens when people take naps. Were you off schedule in your sleep? Maybe those twice. What was going on those two times for it to happen? Because it rarely happens and you can't make connections as to why is this happening.
Yeah. Man, I don't know, but I can say I got my sleep habits are just crazy because I sleep maybe like 4 to 6 hours a night. That's it. I don't like being asleep. Yeah. And I think a lot of it had to do with that sleep paralysis, man. Ever since I was a kid, I've always been the first one to wake up. I'd be out with the guys drinking, and all messed up, man, on drugs and alcohol. Shit, man, I'm up at 6 a.m. I'll be up at 6 a.m. They're all still passed out, man. I'm up, man. I don't want to be asleep. And yeah, and even now, I always wake up in the middle of the night. And that's when it's the worst. That's when you really got to watch out, man. When you wake up at like 2 a.m. and you're like half in, half out, man, as soon as I close my eyes, man, it's just the black smoke, man, that feeling, all of the like colors and the dots and everything, man. It's just like, that's like the prime time to like, if you want to do it, I chicken out every time, even to this day, every time.
So
if you could, sorry, Cyrus.
Maybe you're going to ask that question. Go ahead.
No, I just wondered, Chris, if you could not have this experience, if it could be taken away from you, would you like it to be gone?
Absolutely not. Ain't
Exactly.
that something? I'm
It's a
such a
gift, baby.
scaredy cat.
It's
I
a
have the
gift.
opportunities to go, and I'm like, okay, I'll go. And as soon as you get to that threshold, okay, never mind. I'm back, man. Every time. And
It is.
it's just, I don't know, man. It's just something about being out there alone. It just
Yeah.
scares the
Yeah.
you know what out of me.
Yeah, I wouldn't take it away either. And so far, everyone we've asked is saying it's terrifying, but I'm glad it happened to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm definitely glad it happened to me, but I know exactly that point you're talking about because you can just relax and go with it. And it's like, man, it's one of the hardest feelings. Like it's the most fearful thing. And it's like, no way. It's almost just like falling off backwards somewhere blindfolded and just trust the process. Like, no, thank you.
And that's just it. Once you cross that threshold, you just got to go with it, man, because there's nothing you can do. You just have to go with it. So you can go with it, being petrified and freaking out. And I wouldn't recommend that. You know, I've always been able to calm myself down. And I kind of feel like, especially when you first come out, I feel like you're in a lower realm. So you're around a lot of other stuff, man. And especially your thoughts, your subconscious. So if you're thinking bad stuff, you know, you're gonna see bad stuff. But once you realize it's just stuff, it's not real, and then you move on. You move on to other things. That's usually when them tunnels start popping up. So
Yeah, and DMT is like a drug, and just like other drugs, your attitude going into that drug really affects your experience, whether it's
yeah,
alcohol or your shrooming or whatever drugs is. If you're an anxious and scared person and you drink alcohol, you're more anxious. It's more terrifying. If if you have some type of experience with smoking marijuana, you're paranoid, sober, and you smoke marijuana, then it's like I'm so much more paranoid. So the people who are mastering it are people who are at ease and at peace with themselves in sleep paralysis, and they're like,
yeah,
like I can do this. I know what this is. And so when it happens, their experience is positive with sleep paralysis
yeah. I
because
envy
they have
them so
mastered
much.
their emotion and mind in those moments, which is
Yeah.
difficult.
And it's
Yeah.
such a simple thing. Just like, just relax. Just don't be scared. And that's really all you got to do. But here I am. I'm sitting here talking like, hey, that's all you got to do. I can't even do it. so don't listen to me. Anyway.
Yeah, it does sound like an easy thing to do, but yeah, it is so difficult just to not be scared, to just relax and just to go with it. But I think over time you get more experienced at doing that, and it becomes easier. Great. Okay, is there anything else?
Oh man, I've already taken too much of your time. So I'll be rambling, boy. I'll be rambling, man.
Oh
Y'all got
no,
me
we
all
want to
riled
hear
I
it,
up.
and
think this is
we appreciate it.
Oh, hey man, I appreciate
and
y'all having me. I'll be looking out for that movie.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully I can make sleep paralysis a household name, and we're all
Yeah.
talking about it because my fans are from Indonesia, Malaysia, the folklore, and all these other third world countries. This is a phenomenon. How is this not
Yeah.
talked about? I find it as a
Don't get
gift,
it.
and so now I can make it big for
Yeah.
the world. So I'm glad it happened to me.
Man, I'm glad you're doing it, man. Sure enough.
Appreciate it.
well, I mean, do you think though that there is a stigma about the experience, Chris, and that
You
we
know, I
need to
think there is to people that know about it. It seems like there's so many people that don't even have a clue, you know?
yeah.
Because I mean, it's definitely not something you want to bring up, in the cafeteria, lunch break or something, because
Exactly.
hey, I learned that in
It's
those
very
early
taboo.
communities. Yeah, that I
You
went to.
can't
They
go
said,
around telling people
no.
you're hearing voices and you have demonic experiences, especially when it's happening as a teenager. Because this was happening to me when in my teenage years. I told nobody.
Right.
Who could I tell? You guys are just going to say I'm crazy. And so it does happen to less than 20% of the population. I believe that's the statistic. But to me, I think people don't know to type in sleep paralysis in Google, because I didn't hear that term until I learned about it in college. So really what people are typing in, and you said it yourself, frozen while you're asleep.
Yeah.
That's like that's a more popular term that people are trying to explain. What happened to me? I woke up and I was frozen in my sleep, but really you weren't cold. You're not explaining it right.
Yeah,
So
there was a witch sitting on my chest. You know, I've heard all the different analogies and stuff.
oh yeah.
But hey, Cyrus, do you still get them?
Nope, I have not. Glad to say I've not had an experience since I became a Christian.
Oh, wow.
Since I became a Christian, they stopped. So yeah, after I cleared up the sin and repented and got all that subconscious stuff, all the wrong I was doing and ignoring in my life, I'll gladly talk about it with anybody to help them with their, this is what the point of this podcast is, to approach their spiritual answers, and whether it's medicine and sleep hygiene and things like that. So I'm not here to push that religion is the only way to get rid of your sleep paralysis, but it is a way that helped me, and it's helped a lot of people too.
That book, Sheila, it touches on that.
Yeah.
There's a little bitty section in there that spirit talks about that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I think anybody that's interested and wants to read the book, it's available on Amazon as well, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
Alan Kardec, the Spirit book.
Great book. Great book.
Great. Well, thanks again, Chris. This has been wonderful.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, folks. For real, this has been great.
It's been a pleasure speaking to you. It really, really has.
Same here.
All right, then. Thank you.
So we're nice meeting you.
You too, Cyrus and Sheila.
Thank you again. And so we'll say goodbye. Thank you, Chris.
Adios, folks.
Thank you for episode 3, everybody. See you later.